All right. Feb 5, episode 14. Look at that. We're getting into we're in the mid-teens now. This is going to be
I
fun.
know.
Welcome back to GTMN. Right before we hit record, we were talking about how we both are really enjoying doing this every week, and just like so much stuff is changing and gives us a way to kind of stay on top of what's happening. And so we'll just pick it up from there and we'll just like go into the rest of the episode. But you were saying, Austin, that just we wish we had done this 10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? Like it's just,
Well,
it's crazy.
in fact, Pranav, I was doing this 10 years ago, but
There you go.
podcasts were not popular back then. So I'm creating a podcast at Branch, and I had like 10 episodes. There's probably still in the Apple Store somewhere. Please, nobody listen to them. They're so bad. But at the time we thought, oh, podcasting was just kind of taking off. It hadn't really taken off yet. And then, my career went in a different direction. I never thought about doing a podcast again. But my comment was really around the fact that I think, the creator economy has been here for a while, but in
Yeah.
particular for B2B professionals, the traditional vehicles by which you reach people are oversaturated. Reaching people on LinkedIn messages is oversaturated. Reaching people on cold outbound is oversaturated. I'm not saying it doesn't work. There are still lots of success stories from companies who are doing these things, but it's a lot harder. So where do you turn? You have to turn to the existing distribution channels that are out there. And in particular, I'm of the belief that like, if everybody can create anything with AI apps, then your advantage is your distribution. So if you have no ability to distribute, you can make whatever you want, but how does it get found? So you have to have some audience, some way to get your ideas out into the world. And that's why I said, I wish I had started doing this 10 years ago, because I started blogging very unseriously.
Yeah.
And I just think about, I wish I had a surface area and an audience that was so much bigger because I was taking this more seriously.
Two personal stories here. I have a friend. He eventually became a product manager at LinkedIn, spent like the last 7 or 8 years there, and he's moving on to a new role now. He has been writing on the internet nonstop, hasn't skipped a day for something like 15 years. 15 years. And you know what the impact of that has been? He has made friends with some of the most profound VCs, tech leaders. Like he knows everybody. And so that ultimate sort of connection is because he was writing online and interacting online with those people, not out of like some, weird reason, oh, I want to connect to those people. He was just generally like, those are the people who were writing online and they were connecting about thoughts and ideas. And so the how much this stuff compounds is unbelievable, and it's not a linear path. So if you have the interest of creating content online, I highly recommend it. All right, the second story is this week. This was crazy. Somebody DM'd me on LinkedIn, and I'm going to read it out verbatim. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying what this looks like when it works, right? It's like, hey, Pranav, your content has had a huge impact on how I think about marketing strategy and measurement. You've single-handedly taught me so much. It's unreal. Thank you for your insights. Would love to work for you someday and scale Paramount, blah, 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 right? And then just volunteered all of this information about the company that he's at right now, they're in how we might be able to help and how he wants us to help, them do a better job. And that was not intentional. This was not like, oh, me trying to do some ABM and like this fancy trick. Is just us talking about what we are passionate about, and it attracts your tribe. And so, yeah, I get a lot of satisfaction out of posts like those when I get them inbound. So today was this week was a good week. We got a lot on the docket to talk about. So, did you play with ClaudeBot, MoltBot? They're not allowed to be called ClaudeBot anymore. Or OpenClaw. Now
CLAWD, ClaudeBot.
I think I spent the last weekend, like all weekend, just seeing it everywhere on my feed. And it took me a while to kind of figure out what's going on. And then TBPN had the founder of OpenClaw. It's now called OpenClaw. So 3 name changes in like 1 week. And the guy
sort of cease and desist will do.
Exactly. And the guy's just arrived. He's like, oh yeah, I've made my money. I don't want to make money. This is open source. And F you to like everything, all the, like, I don't care about privacy and security. Like, I'm just going at it. And this is pure open source. Go nuts. It's just complete anarchy. At the same time, he's built something that is seemingly quite magical, and he's talking about it like, I'm using it in my personal life, and this is how I'm using it, and it like just does things. He apparently, okay, here's a really interesting story. He says, I started talking to it, so I sent a voice note to it. It has no voice models. It took that voice note, automatically figured out how to convert that into text, understood the text, and then responded back. And he was like, I did not program it to do this. So, I don't want to like start to say AI, AGI, all that fun stuff, but like the fact that the automation is capable of that if you give it the right tools is pretty insane.
Yeah. I mean, we've always like, we talked about this in a couple episodes. Right now, the limitation is not that AI can't build lots of things and solve problems for you. It's that your context is dispersed among many silos and your agents are dispersed among many silos. So the beauty of ClaudeBot, in my opinion, or OpenClaw, whatever we want to call it now, is just like it centralizes context and centralizes agents. I would argue you can do a lot of this stuff very similarly with Claude Code. So I run Claude Code, and if you're a semi-technical programmer or even pseudo-technical, you can have a terminal which acts effectively like that. You can create projects, but the main difference is it doesn't have access to everything locally. It can't move on your machine. So that's some of the difference. Is you're giving a lot of control to a computer to like access your machine in ways that it hasn't previously. Yeah, I mean, look, I still think like Apple is missing the boat here. They should
Yeah.
release their own agentic model that can interact with your Mac safely and
Not
not
gonna
write
happen. Like, do
destructive
do
commands.
you know how good Apple is at software? Come on. Like, this is not happening.
I know, but this is the problem. Is like, and I, I still am not sure if I would give ClaudeBot 100% access to everything on my computer, but I would certainly put it in a secure environment and play with it there. The people who are just going ham and letting it peruse all their emails and documents with unfettered permissions, I feel like we're just waiting for something bad to happen.
So here's the fun part. Peter Steinberger, the guy who created OpenClaw, Moltbot, ClaudeBot, all of the above, he himself said that when he was doing the domain name change because of the cease and desist from Anthropic, in the like 5 minutes that something had to be set up, a bunch of crypto hackers took over and sent out a whole bunch of crypto stuff, basically asking for money and created a token and like the whole thing, right? So he himself was like, yeah, this is not the model for how a mass consumer product is going to get rolled out. But he literally said, I hope it inspires the next generation of people who are building consumer software to think in these domains and have sort of a more holistic way of thinking about, like you said, sort of persistent memory, all the shared context across everything, and then being able to take action on your behalf. So it's just such a wild time that we live in. And yeah, I'm very AI pilled these days. So I'm like, yep, give me more crazy, because this is it. This is, I think, the what the internet is going to look like for the next like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, should we talk about our favorite topic, our the Claude ads?
Oh yes, the one I sent you.
Yes, let me pull this up. Should we play it for
You
everybody?
got you got to let people watch it because this is our continuing theme.
All
I
right,
feel like
I'm
this
gonna
was
pull this
created
up.
out of an episode of Mad Men, though. It was so good.
I mean, the brouhaha, and we'll talk about it like right after we watch this together. And we're giving some free marketing here to Alex McFarland. I don't know who that is, but
how do I communicate better with my mom?
Great question. Improved communication with your mom can bring you closer.
Wait, I love how it took like less than a second for the lady to wake up and respond. That was hilarious.
Some techniques
Yeah.
you can start by listening. Really hear what she's trying to say underneath her words. Build conversation from points of agreement. Find a connection through shared activity, perhaps a nature walk. Or if the relationship can't be fixed,
Oh my God.
find emotional connection with other older women on Golden Encounters,
Oh,
the
yeah.
mature dating site that connects
Are we gonna get
sensitive
flagged for
cubs
this?
with roaring cougars.
What?
What?
Would you like me to create your profile?
So good.
Ads are coming to AI, but not to Claude. Oh my God.
What's the difference between me and you? Me and you. Me and you.
I
So
mean,
good. So good.
masterpiece of an ad, right? Just so good. And it's interesting. Okay, well, what do you think about the ad? You sent it to me, so let's start with you.
First, it fully captures the depth of emotion that people are going to talk with AI. Two, I think it captures what I'm hearing and sensing from a lot of people, which is like GPT is pretty lazy, like it's providing lazy responses these days. I don't know if you caught it, but it was like the answers were so generic and fluffy. And yes, he was happy to have the answer, but they were pretty bad answers objectively. And then, the ad at the end was just the cherry on top. The fact that it was like not at all related to the topic, it was only loosely related to the topic, which now, look, will ads be that bad? Probably not. But it captures the point, which is like you're sharing private information, which could be utilized to advertise for something that's completely unrelated. And if we've seen how other advertising has gone, that's certainly what happens in the world of programmatic. I can't tell you how many times like I've bought a product and then I receive an ad for it still on YouTube because they never did re-engagement ads properly and they didn't have, an opt-out list. So these are the types of things that can happen pretty easily. So I thought it was a brilliant advertisement, especially given the fact that I think Claude is like winning a little bit of the war right now, at least in consumer perception for the Silicon Valleyites. But what it doesn't address, which is kind of side to all this, is that there's still a vast majority of people who are not using AI in corporate America. So like, this is a great audience, a great ad for our audience, us, but won't really make any difference for somebody in Wisconsin who hasn't figured out how to use AI yet.
I mean, what a great point, and that's what I wanted to bring up here. So if you look at Google Trends, and hey, don't get me wrong, like the fact that we're looking at Google Trends to understand the growth of ChatGPT versus Claude is like the whole thing is just so freaking meta. But
So hilarious.
but when you look at sort of the the market share and the interest share, other than this like holiday period sort of lull, ChatGPT is still crushing.
Mhm.
And and that is the same point that another one of my feed people were making. Feed people, somebody I follow.
That's a great new term. Feed
Feed
people.
I don't know what to call them, right? Like the people I follow is just too long. Feed people.
Random NPCs on LinkedIn.
And they were saying the same thing that, the awareness for Claude in America is probably less than 3%. And I don't know how they came up with that number. There must be some study of that or what have you. And so the thing that I think the Claude ad did really well, and I think this is going to play at the Super Bowl, is they did not mention ChatGPT by name. Right? Unlike the other sort of competitive ads that you see, where even the Pepsi and Coca-Cola ad, like Pepsi has literally got Coca-Cola in the ad. So you're actually giving airtime to Coke just as much as you're, getting attention to yourself. So from just a pure advertising perspective, one thing that they did well. The thing that is interesting is like the absence of ads may not be enough of a needle mover in terms of conversions for Claude. You see what I'm saying? Like this might be a nice like little story to tell, but it actually may not inspire more people to go check out Claude because you didn't say anything about Claude. You just said it doesn't have ads, but what does it have? Right? For an average person.
How is it better?
Like the absence of it doesn't make it better by, if you don't talk about for an average person, not the Silicon Valley elite. So I think it was a hilarious ad for us, for the insiders, but I don't know that it's going to connect that deeply with the broader audience.
Especially since the broader audience might not understand yet how to use GPT or Claude in order to do work and help their lives, right? I do think it lands in the sense of, hey, ads are bad if you're talking about private, sensitive health information,
Totally.
private, intimate information about your family life. You don't really want to be advertised for that. So it lands that point quite well, but it's making an assumption that the audience already knows how to use these LLMs.
But then you think about this, right? Google, which is like what, a $3 trillion company right now, and how's it making money? Ads. Do people not give all their data to Gmail and to YouTube and to Google search? like do people really care about their privacy and their sensitive information to the degree that Claude is like, this is like a very Apple-esque argument, right? Which is Apple stands for privacy and Anthropic stands for privacy, right? Like that's what they're saying.
But do
But
people really care?
I mean, the
Yeah.
numbers say otherwise.
Also, just think about like all your probably most intimate health information is on Google's servers if you have a Gmail account.
Exactly.
Like all of my medical records are on Gmail.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Okay, so on that note, we'll talk about Google a little bit. Their 2025 full year earnings were $400 billion. And then I went and checked what is Apple, or Apple's also something crazy like $500 billion. $400 billion, $60 billion of that is revenue from YouTube ads. And then a couple of interesting things that I noticed in the release. CPCs, so cost per click, up 7% year over year. CPMs up 7% year over year. So everything's just getting more expensive. And then I went back and looked at the last 5 years. It has gone up every year, 10%, 20%, 15%, 7%. It doesn't stop. And so it's wild to me that the overall sort of advertising market keeps growing. The CPCs keep growing, the CPMs keep growing, and we keep investing more and more in marketing and advertising. Claude is releasing an ad about how ads are bad. It's just this whole, the entire world runs on ads. Like it's just, I was just taking I was just taking a step back and thinking about what's happening with Google's earnings. And it's just like, wild. How does this company get disrupted? I don't think it does.
Well, also just think about the fact that I think in the 2010 era, there were many new emergent ad channels. We had Reddit, we had TikTok, we had Snapchat. So there were a lot of emergent channels that could compete, at X as well, compete against Google for people's attention and eyeballs. But we haven't really seen a new social media site. I mean, you could maybe say Truth Social or whatever, but it's like not that big of a site relative to others. And like maybe there's Substack. LinkedIn is kind of coming. LinkedIn was always there, but it's grown in size. So like all the major channels are set, right? There isn't a lot of new growing inventory. And that's why ad businesses are really interesting when they pop up, because if you can create new inventory somehow or offer existing inventory in a new way, it's a for sure model. I mean, you're competing against companies that are raising their price year over year,
Yeah.
and there's plenty of demand. There's just not enough supply.
And which is why I actually think the ChatGPT ads are going to work really, really well.
100%.
Yeah.
It's
All
a brand new surface area.
It sure is. It sure is. Okay, couple of other pieces of news. So one is Meta released this annual report or whatever you want to call it. They essentially talk about how in 2026 they are going to drive performance through all of their AI investments, and they're doing it because they announced something like $130 billion of capex investment in AI, and so they're trying to show why that investment makes sense, right, to their investors, to their shareholders, and what have you. And what they're saying is like, hey, what's going to happen in 2026 is a few things. One is they're going all in on Reels. So now, if you are on any of the Meta products, there are 25% more same-day Reels, which means that if I open Reels on Instagram or Facebook, I don't know where else, maybe on WhatsApp, you see more organic Reels content just naturally than ever before. And 50% of all ad dollars and exposure and reach is actually going towards that Reels ecosystem. This is very similar to kind of the TikTok and like short form video. And they're getting better and better about using the same TikTok-like algorithm, which is more interest-based, to be able to tell like Austin would really like these 5 Reels, and they have nothing to do with obviously social media and what have you. So they're going all in on that and using all of their AI superpowers to improve like content discovery on their surface. So if you are an advertiser, like whether you're B2C or B2B, is like get on the video bandwagon and get on the short form video bandwagon, because that is the way that Meta is going to be run for the foreseeable future. Like if you're not doing Reels, you're missing out on like more than 50% of the audience on Meta.
It's not just Meta. I mean, everybody's doing it. There's TikTok, Meta, YouTube as well.
Yeah, and in fact, LinkedIn also reported in similar news 30% growth in video ad revenue. I think they released their reporting in the last week as well. So, like you said, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, Meta, it's all about video. I guess it's no surprise, but I didn't really realize how big Reels was for Meta until I saw this report. So I'm gonna change our strategy on Meta when we launch.
Wild. Wild, but not surprising.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna pivot a little bit. Talk about our favorite company. No, Accenture. Accenture also had
You
their
work for Accenture,
earnings.
right? You were in
No,
Accenture,
no,
right?
no,
No?
no, no, no. I
I,
didn't.
I was there for like 6 months or something like that.
There you go. I have lots of friends from Accenture, and obviously, they do some interesting stuff. But the news from them was, and I'm going to read this out verbatim because I think it's interesting. They said in their earnings report, we have now reached a point where advanced AI is being embedded in some way across nearly everything that we do, and many of our clients are focusing on moving beyond standalone POCs or initiatives. We're shifting to more scaled end-to-end solutions that integrate multiple forms of AI. It's less meaningful to isolate the data specifically for advanced AI. It does not reflect how demand is evolving. And so essentially what they're saying is like AI is not like one thing. It's robotics, it's computer vision, it's ML, it's generative AI, it's agentic stuff, it's MCP. All of these things are AI, and they're claiming that they're doing $1 billion of AI revenue in just Q1 and $2.2 billion of bookings, and both of these numbers are like 76% and 120% year-over-year growth. So essentially, Accenture is now pitching itself as an AI consulting firm, and
Of
essentially,
course they are.
yeah, with the trends. And all of these large enterprises are eating it up. Like the demand is massive.
Yeah, I wonder it's hard to know what's fundamentally changed, right? Because if you think about it, building with AI is as simple as, do you have a GPT or Anthropic key? Do you have an IDE to develop in? And can you deploy solutions that use these API keys to build software and make responses? So I'd argue probably what's changed, if anything, is that the engineers who used to have to write custom software now can write software with the help of Claude Code or Cursor or or Codex. But the fundamentals of the business haven't really changed. There's a problem, and we're going to go build and integrate solutions with it. The only difference is now we can do that a lot faster. And especially since Accenture is in the business often of managing the tools and technology that they implement afterwards, much like Palantir. This is why I think everybody's talking about the Palantirization of consulting and software. Is software really just code anymore, or is it humans that build code and manage it for you? And are you paying for the solution, or are you paying for the problem to be fixed entirely for forever? And yes, I mean, I think I can understand how Accenture is doing it. I think where I would be looking is like what does Accenture give up, or what goes away from Accenture's consulting base that doesn't have a strong application to AI? For example, like they probably are doing close to no strategy consulting anymore,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
That's exactly what I was thinking. And yeah, so it essentially what it becomes is when they hire people and when they deploy people, they pitch them as like, hey, kind of like GTM engineers, like, hey, these people understand how to best maximize the value of all of these AI and agentic tools, and that's what you're paying us for. Is your internal staff is not capable or trained up or skilled up, and there's a business there. And I can see it. I can see it that a lot of like Fortune 500 just don't have the exposure. And so if you can have like 50,000 people that are trained in AI and data, they're just much more effective at solving some of the problems that those businesses have. Now,
Yep.
another thing that's happening, there was a massive amount of panic on X, and also just like talking to a bunch of my peers about the SaaS sell-off, right? Figma's down some like 70% from its highs. Right? People were just talking about like all of the major SaaS companies are down. Like there's a major sell-off in SaaS, and everyone's freaking out because of things like Claude and Claude Cowork and the plugins thing, ClaudeBot, MoldBot, all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but like, are you really gonna rip out your SaaS tools with AI build tools? It just feels so misguided to me that there would be such a big sell-off. And I think it'll come back, but who knows, right? It's what's your take? Like, what's the discussion with your customer base around this stuff?
Man, I mean, I think it's real. I talked to you about this over the weekend. I'm building a kind of like a centralized brain. I called it like a personal data platform. and it's written in Claude code. And the purpose of it is to collect information and context from a variety of sources and provide a context layer on which I'll build applications that do stuff. Because my personal limitation so far is like I have lots of directories that I've built in either Claude code or Cursor that do things, but there's no thing to tie it all together. But every time I take an action now, I spin up a directory and I apply Claude code and I have it go figure out a solution and do it. There's almost no SaaS application that you can't build with enough time. So the question is like, is the value that you're paying worth the value received from not having to go build it with an agent? And I think that's the case for a lot of there's focusing especially on like legal and human resources tools, right? The example I came to in our space often though is those privacy consent banners? Like,
Yeah.
man, I would not want to be in that business because what I looked at these maybe 6 months ago, and they're basically like a JavaScript snippet with a backend system that collects data in a warehouse, and they're charging $10,000 or $15,000 for it. So if I ever were consulting for somebody who had to do GDPR, I'd be like, just build it. There's no point in paying one of these providers to do it. Oh yeah, maybe it's $15,000. Well, you're going to set up, a snippet on your site, which Claude can do for you. You're going to set up a warehouse to collect opt-out data and federate GDPR. And sure, there are compliance rationales, but most of the time, an agent will be able to figure those out, and you can set up some type of, cron job to just alert you every single day or week or whenever you need to. So I think that's what people are scared of. Is like there are lots of these niche SaaS applications that are great businesses because it's like a silly, stupid thing to have built, but now it's silly, stupid because you can build it. Another example is, have you heard of like DAMs, like data asset managers?
Yep.
So like a DAM is just a giant ass database with assets.
Yep.
Do you really need to pay $100,000 for that? Or should you just go spin up a Snowflake warehouse and build some type of UI where people can log in and store their credentials or
I've heard people doing it with Google Drive. They use Claude to sit on top of Google Drive, and that's their DAM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is where I think people are freaking out a bit, is like there's a lot of these easy applications that have been built, even like in the last year and a half on top of AI. And you're like, well, why would I pay $50 to $100 a month for something when I can just build it once and maintain it forever?
All right. Okay. So let's pressure test this theory a little bit with an example of a competitor to Clarify that announced a $20 million round this week. Day AI. I think they were around from before. I don't know if this is a fresh new sort of fundraise, but essentially it's bringing autonomous intelligence to enterprise CRM, automatic data capture, no more manual entry, customer interactions are logged, context-rich insights, et cetera, right? So to me, it's very much similar to kind of the story that Clarify has. And so these companies are still getting funded. Like you're not building your own CRM. So there is some value to being the system of record and solving the problem for, 10,000 companies, so that each of those 10,000 companies, it doesn't have to go and, wipe code their own solution. There is some value in that. That people recognize, right? Whether it's like bug fixes, whether it's like, hey, we just figured out the best workflow. You don't have to like prompt AI to figure out the right workflow. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, let's use it as an example. The CRM thing is interesting. Kyle Poyer put out a good post recently that was talking all about vibe-coded CRMs. And I think if you just look at your CRM as a pipeline where you can collect email and contact data and have to-do lists and have a pipeline to update opportunities, anybody can do that. Frankly, you can do it in Notion. You don't even need to build anything. Just build a table in Notion. When we were doing discovery at Clarify, Patrick and I found often that tons of founders were operating off of a Notion or a Google table until they got to 50 to 100 people. Because there's like some limit where it becomes very hard to like manage that much context in a manual system. The thing that actually I think you can't vibe code easily right now is all the stuff that collects video and transcript data. Even though Recall has made it easy to build an application that can record, there's still activation energy there. Like you can't build your own call recorder easily. Now, if you had an engineer and you have 3 to 4 months and you have enough money, totally. But even if you do it, it's expensive. Like it's a couple $100 to $1,000 a month to manage a Recall instance versus just buying a tool for $15 off the shelf and setting up a webhook or an API to post that data into a warehouse. So I think there's that might be the reason why some of these CRM businesses are still being funded, is because there's enough meat behind the hard problems to solve that can't be vibe coded away. And I think that's real, especially for the CRM instance. And I'm not really surprised by that. But what does surprise me is when there's like a very conceptually easy product to build that's getting funded for lots of money. And what I actually find is happening more is that those businesses are getting seed rounds and then they're becoming profitable. Like I had a buddy who created this legal company maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it was seed funded. And it's a platform where lawyers can basically sign contracts and work on contracts. And that's all they do. So they have like 10,000 lawyers on there. You can hire a lawyer to review a contract for you for anything you want. And it's a lot cheaper than, say, going to counsel with one of the big companies that you probably use for your closing or whatever. And you can set a timeline, you can set a price. And so it's like it's a marketplace. So the value is not necessarily the platform, the value is the marketplace. And this gets back to the original part of the discussion, which is distribution, right? Like anybody can build these things, but if you can't distribute it fast enough, you might not have a business. And so that's also what I'm seeing come true is like, yes, people are worried about businesses. And if you don't have some type of marketplace or dynamic where there's humans involved, I'd be worried. But if you have a business that that is a marketplace or requires humans or provides a service that involves humans, and AI is just making it easier to build, you know, your advantage is that you've had years of time to build that network up,
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I agree. Like, there's got to be something more than just the pure play software and the marketplace angle, or like there's something that is unique about the business that's beyond just like buttons and logic that makes it stickier. I like that. Okay. Couple of other interesting marketing things that are happening. So one is one of the largest agencies in the world, Publicis, I think they're called Publicis. They are rumored to be angling to buy LiveRamp. So this is essentially, and I think this has been happening where the larger agencies, and I think it's WPP that went all in on building, a whole bunch of like tech and data assets within the agency business. And you're seeing this now with Publicis kind of trying to do the same thing, and expanding to not just like, hey, we've got creative and media buying, but we have data assets that makes us unique, and why you want to use Publicis and not just the human beings. So interesting thing there in terms of what's happening in the market. I think there'll be more of this type of stuff where services and tech are going to start to combine more and more.
The Palantirization of everything.
Yep. And then another piece of news that I thought was interesting is Amazon launched an MCP server for agentic advertising.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you say they launched a server for buying so I could have my agent buy from Amazon for me. Wouldn't that be dope?
Advertising. That would be dope. But yeah, I guess. No, they must have something on there. I think it's called Rufus. Have you heard of this? Amazon has Rufus, which is like their Copilot or whatever. So you can go to Amazon.com and use Rufus to like buy stuff, because they don't want, Google or Meta to own the interface. So they want the customers to have their own, an Amazon interface. So I think they're working on it to make it more easier to buy things at Amazon. But anyway.
Yeah. Conflict.
Exactly. They also want you to browse and like add more things to the cart and, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So why this is interesting, I think, is when you have an MCP server for agentic advertising, what they're saying is that if you have a Claude or a GPT, you could, as a media buyer, start to configure your Amazon ads through that MCP integration rather than having to go into the Amazon interface and do all types of programmatic stuff that, and, sometimes I also like, okay, so we're just talking about APIs, right?
Yeah, 100%.
What's the big difference? But maybe there are some differences from, an MCP perspective, and you are going to have basically machine to machine, advertising buys. And I wouldn't be surprised if Google and Meta start to go down this path as well. And you start to see a new way of doing media buying, which is a lot more agentic. I'm personally very excited about it because it makes it, gives companies like Paramark or others in the MarTech space sort of more control over what you push into these ad platforms dynamically based on what's working, what's not working. because all the ad managers of these platforms are just so bad, so bad.
Yep.
So interesting move.
Well, yeah, I mean, it also is interesting because I think it will allow people to deploy themselves much faster. One of the biggest things for small businesses and startups is like figuring out how to even run ads. And if you have the collective knowledge and an agent of how to do an ad and you say, hey, I'm looking to run an ad for $10,000. I have 5 different, ad copies. Here's my audience. This is the target outcome. Claude, for example, is good enough to be both an advisor and an executor. So previously you might have to hire a performance marketer for $5,000 a month to give you the expertise and execution. Now maybe it's the founder sitting down for an afternoon and learning together with Claude, Claude code. This gets back to like the meta theme that we've talked about so many times, which is like the biggest limitation right now isn't that somebody like yourself, for example, as a founder can't do it. It's that there's only so many hours in the day.
Yep.
And this is actually why I've been writing a lot. I've been somewhat shitting on the 996 and like the work grind and all this stuff, because at the end of the day, work is collapsing into time. Like the amount of work you can produce is actually how much time you have to do real work. And so that's why I've been harping on the fact of like, hey, a lot of founders that I've been talking to are just unfocused. They're having one-on-ones, they're having lunch dates, they're talking to VCs, and like none of those are all the anti kind of AI strategy. The AI strategy right now as a founder is actually you have as much time as possible to be building. Like you get maximum leverage out of your time to be physically building. And if you had to like debate how else you're spending time, well, it's like on strategy and customers. So like if those are the 3 things you're doing as a founder, I think you're doing it right. If you're doing anything else, like figure out how to run your team asynchronously. This is why, and again, not that we're shilling Paramark here, but one of the things that I noticed when you put out your GTM engineer JD, all your JDs, is that you have an in-office presence, and that eliminates so many problems. If you're all together in the same place, you don't have to worry about scheduled one-on-ones. You can be like, look, if you want a one-on-one, just come and talk to me, right? I
Yeah,
don't need to babysit you. We're building a lean team. And I actually think that's the model for a lot of startups in the future. And it's certainly something that I'm looking out for as I consider like good teams,
it makes total sense. Makes total sense. I personally love the idea of being in the office. And I'm not in the office today because I hurt my calf while running this morning. We were talking about it before the episode, so I'm a little bummed. All right, let's bring it to a close. Couple of other things that are happening. You'd be surprised by this, Austin. I don't know, maybe you are not surprised by this, but I
Okay.
just read something that YouTube, like 50% of YouTube viewership is happening
Mhm.
on a TV. Not just
Wow.
YouTube CT, not just YouTube TV. I'm talking like plain old YouTube. 50% of that is happening on large screens, which
Is that like through an Apple TV, you think?
Apple TV, any of the like Samsung TV. I don't know I haven't looked into like what the actual hardware distribution is, but
This is YouTube and not YouTube TV or YouTube?
it's the combination of YouTube TV and YouTube old school. All of that combined,
Okay. Okay.
right? All that combined, and I actually don't know how much of that is actually YouTube TV, but essentially
I would be very
half of
curious.
all viewership on YouTube is happening on large screens, which is wild. And then they just introduced a new ad inventory called shoppable YouTube ads. So you're watching CTV, right? You're watching
Mhm.
TV, you're watching YouTube on your big TV, and you can buy products directly. So you've got a mobile phone, and you will have ads there with QR codes or some other mechanism. And guess what? Google has Google Pay or whatever. So you just take your ads on YouTube and you purchase it on your phone, and it's all connected. Your identity is synced up. It's perfect for end-to-end commerce. I don't know if it'll work because I don't think that human behavior works that way, but they're pitching it as essentially a bridge between upper funnel brand awareness and bottom funnel performance for the living room. So, in other words, like how TV used to work 20 years ago.
With advertisements, yeah.
For podcasts. But they
Honestly,
have, yeah.
what I'd be so curious about, Pranav, is like what percent of that is YouTube TV? Because if you tell me, hey, 80% is YouTube TV, I totally buy it. If it's like not, that's shocking because I almost exclusively watch YouTube TV on a TV. I have an Apple TV, and that's what I do. I almost exclusively watch YouTube on a computer or phone. So I'm curious if it's actually YouTube, not YouTube TV on the TV. And the second thing, which I think we might have talked about this last year, I really want to see sponsored advertisements for the products that I see on TV shows in YouTube TV. There's no reason why they can't use AI to do that. There's no reason why they can't pre-scan the show and try to find products that are similar or in the actual show. If you're watching, for example, I don't know, Guy Fieri or some shit, right? And then there's a product or some advertisement that's related to the actual episode. Oh man, there's a meatball sub or whatever. Do you want to order meatball subs from this other place remotely online from Goldbelly? Like, they're missing a huge opportunity not to be pre-scanning shows and be matching that up with existing inventory.
Okay, so I found some stats. If AI mode on Google is correct, what it is saying is that over 50% of total YouTube viewership happening on TV screens is YouTube TV. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, so majority is YouTube. I think that's what it's saying. That majority is YouTube TV. But even if it's like 40% is like old school YouTube, right? Not
Sure.
TV. That is still massive.
Totally. Yeah. We'll never get this data, but then it's like, well, what's the device by which they're viewing? Are they doing it natively through like a
Yeah.
Samsung TV app? Are they doing it through those old Chrome extension dongles? They're doing it through Apple TV? Because a lot of that, I think, determines whether this makes sense or not.
Yeah. And then, okay, here's another one. This is also wild. YouTube TV is 13% of all US television viewing. What?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
No, not YouTube TV. YouTube. So both general and TV combined is 13% of all US television, which is...
And we just established that like 50% or more is YouTube TV. So YouTube TV is like 5 to maybe 10% of all watching TV in US.
I mean, whoever's running YouTube, what a good job they're doing. Wild. All right. On that note, this episode of GTMN is going to be on YouTube. So go and subscribe to GTMN.
And you can watch it on a TV if you want.
You can watch it on the TV, put it in the background while, you're making lunch or what have you. Folks, we'll see you again next week. Austin, it was fun again. We'll catch up.
Always a pleasure, Pranav.